Hi, thanks for joining me. Welcome back to the channel. So today's video, I really have been looking forward to this, well, ever since I learned about the release, the announcement of the release, and what we're going to be talking about is Pink Floyd at Pompeii. So I've got here the LP, vinyl LP, which is a double album, and I've got the Blu-ray. It's also available on CD and I think on DVD. So I just want to talk a little bit about both versions of these, but primarily I'm going to be talking about the Blu-ray. And there's a good reason for that, and that is that the original release of this, it is a film, it's a movie. So what this is a movie soundtrack, basically. And this is the first time that this has ever been released on vinyl officially from Pink Floyd. There have been bootlegs available before, and I'll just show you, being a Pink Floyd nut, that was something I couldn't resist, so I bought a bootleg some time ago. I'm not sure when this one was released, 1986 it says, but honestly, it's a bootleg. There's absolutely no, it's marbled coloured vinyl. I've got no idea what it was mastered from. I mean, I can only assume the film soundtrack, obviously, but whether that was from a DVD, from the original theatrical release, from a VHS, who knows? But I will talk a bit about the sound of that, because for all of us who are really into Pink Floyd, we've probably got something like this. I mean, there's dozens of bootlegs with different covers and different sources. And I've no doubt that they're, varying sound qualities. But this is one that I've kind of enjoyed. But primarily, first and foremost, Pink Floyd live at Pompeii, or Pink Floyd at Pompeii, depends what you want to call it. I think initially it was called Pink Floyd Live at Pompeii, and they've decided to call it, technically they've called it Pink Floyd at Pompeii, MCMLXXII, which is from 1972. Pink Floyd at Pompeii, 1972. So that's kind of vaguely interesting, because it was filmed in 1971. So they weren't at Pompeii in 72, they were at Pompeii in 71, but the film was released in 1972. So, they're messing around with titles and things, which is, it's entirely up to them if that's what they want to do. Although, of course, I think they've recently sold all their rights to Sony, so I strongly suspect this is Sony messing around rather than Pink Floyd messing around. But anyway, I want to talk about the video primarily. I'm just going to put these records out in the sun because it's extremely hot here today. So, what I had this on VHS back in the probably late 70s, and I got a director's cut DVD, which I think was released in 2002, and that's been my kind of go-to copy ever since. And it is just an astonishing movie. Now, for those of you who don't know it, but do know the Pink Floyd sort of record catalogue, Medal, which is an absolutely phenomenal album. It's one of my absolute favourite Pink Floyd albums. I do listen to it more than Dark Side of the Moon. I probably listen to it more than Wish You Were Here. I think Animals is the only one that I probably listen to more than Medal. But it's a beautiful, beautiful album. But this period, sort of just before Dark Side of the Moon, I think is probably the sort of the psychedelic, trippy, hippie, trippy kind of cosmic, if you like, Pink Floyd. I think that's their peak. And so this is sort of recorded at that time, okay? So despite what it says here, it was filmed in October 71 at Pompeii in the Roman amphitheatre there. So that's kind of what this is. Now, it was released in the cinema in 72, and it's been recut, new editions, extra little bits of interviews and things added in over the years. As I say, I've got a director's cut, which was done in 2002, which has got lots of little extra bits, little bits of interview, and also sort of overlaying animations. And I'll just put a little clip of a screenshot of one of these things, sort of pretty crude sort of computer graphic animations, sort of the fall of Pompeii, really. And then there's space shuttles and all sorts of strange things going on. But this doesn't have any of that, and that's a really good thing. So forget the director's cut. This goes back to much closer to the original movie. And I will point out on here, you've got two versions. The feature film, which may or may not be exactly what was released in '72, and what they call the concert. The concert is basically the feature film without these little sort of clips from in a canteen where they're talking about, Nick Mason doesn't like pie crust, pastry, and there's bits of particularly Gilmore and Waters being interviewed where they look well and truly stoned and very young. So those sort of little bits are cut out, okay? And there's also some stuff which is shot in the studio where they're working on a couple of tracks from Dark Side of the Moon, Brain Damage and Us and Them, and those bits aren't included in this, what they call the concert. So, I'd certainly suggest that you watch the feature film probably first, if you've never seen it before anyway, and enjoy those little extra bits. But going back to it, the concert is sort of, that's the thing that really makes Live at Pompeii. And so you've got both versions on this, and you've got stereo uncompressed linear PCM, which is what I listen to, which is very good. And then you've got 5.1 True HD Dolby, and you've also got Dolby Atmos. And I don't have a 5.1 setup or an Atmos setup, so basically I just didn't play those and won't comment on them for that very reason, okay? But the main point about this is it is a movie first and foremost before being a soundtrack to a movie, and this is without any shadow of doubt the best version of this movie that's ever been released. I'm just going to insert a couple of screenshots here. You'll see Nick Mason at his drum kit, and this shot here is from the 2002 Director's Cut DVD, which you'll notice is 16.9 aspect ratio. And then this shot here is from the new Blu-ray, and you can just see basically they found an old 35mm cinema print of it and have scanned in every frame by frame, scanned in and restored each frame individually. And the job they've done is nothing short of phenomenal. Yes, you could argue it looks a bit hyper real. Yes, you could argue that it is sort of photoshopped, but it is astonishingly better. And just to give you another example, here's a shot of Rick Wright from the 2002 DVD, and then here's a similar shot from the new Blu-ray. You can see the picture quality is in another league, and for that reason, it is just it never bothered me, the picture quality, before, because it's first time I watched it was on VHS. So the 2002 DVD was certainly better than that, but not a lot. So that's the first thing. The picture quality is an amazing, amazing upgrade, leap forward. And now I want to get on and talk about the sound. Now, I'll make a few more comments when I come to talking about the records, but the sonic perspective is kind of the camera's eye, if you like. So as the camera pans around the band, the mix, Stephen Wilson has done this new mix, kind of follows that to some degree. So as the camera sort of pans in on Roger Waters, Roger Waters' bass will become sort of the prominent aspect of the mix, and so on and so forth with the drums and guitar, Gilmore's guitar and Rick Wright on keyboards, etc. So it's kind of almost hard to evaluate the sound while you're watching the movie, but suffice to say, it is excellent. I mean, it really, really is. The clarity and separation and precision on every aspect of the sound on each of those instruments is just in another league compared with the original, okay? So really and honestly, this Blu-ray is just absolutely knockout, okay? And it comes in a little gatefold packet here, look, you see, that's where the actual Blu-ray disc resides. And there's a little booklet here. Okay, with some credits, first of all, and then some kind of quite cool photos. All very nice, okay? So, what I want to do now is talk about the vinyl LP. So, here we have it. Pink Floyd at Pompeii, the first official release of this ever, okay? And as you see, it comes in a gatefold cover, very nice gatefold cover. And when I say very nice, that's possibly an understatement. The packaging of this vinyl LP is absolutely staggering. So you've got a kind of a matte, satin matte outer finish sleeve, and it really is nice. It's solid, you've got a decent thickness spine. It's all round just bloody lovely. And then on the inside, you've got some of those pictures that were included in the CD book, but this is on high gloss, or rather the pictures are picked out in high gloss, and the background card is in a sort of satin finish. So it is absolutely sumptuous, exquisite. You know, you couldn't ask more for a beautiful album cover, okay? And then if I show you the inner sleeves, that's the first disc inner sleeve. Careful with that Axe Eugene, part of the title there, and part of their sound system here. Now, interestingly enough, I did actually hear this sound system only a year or two ago. It was up at one of the hi-fi shows up north in England, and I'll pop a little picture or two of that here. And they were playing Floyd from this era, you know, so that was quite something. Anyway, this is the second disc, set the controls for the Heart of the Sun, and a little bit more of the shots of the amphitheatre. Now, they don't come lined, these inner sleeves, so I've put my own lined inners in here, but you can also see the labels. So one side you've got a mosaic type of label, and then on the other you've got the album title. So it's that in fact is side C, and that is side D. It's a bit of a pet hate of mine actually, albums that don't very clearly tell you what side of the album you've got from the label. But anyway, it's a nicely pressed LP. It sounds good. And the last thing I need to show you is this poster, which is pretty damned cool. Okay, here we go. As you can see, absolutely beautiful. So if I was still a teenager, that would be on the wall without a shadow of a doubt. I'll just stick that in there. So that's what you get for your money. And I have to say, in terms of the LP, and I will actually just show you in there, you can look inside of the LP cover. There is actually printing on there. There's this sort of flames image which appear in the film at certain points. In terms of its packaging, this LP is absolutely bang on the money. It really, really, really is very, very, very good. So, how does it sound? Well, you know, basically you're watching the movie without the movie. So you're just listening to the soundtrack. And, I mean, it sounds great. If I compare it to my bootleg copy, that's quite interesting. Now, initially, and this is why I didn't do this video about a week ago, because my first impressions was I actually preferred the bootleg. And There's a reason for that. The bootleg is quite a lot brighter, so there's much more kind of splash and shimmer on the cymbals, and there's more air in the space, if you like. And of course, this is recorded in the Roman amphitheatre at Pompeii. So there is a kind of a nice ambient openness to it, which is really, really, really compelling. And the original, the original movie release obviously would have been recorded to tape, analog, and that would have been how the sound was on the original movie release, and subsequent video VHS release, and then for DVD it will obviously have been digitized. And I'm not suggesting for a moment that this has, this isn't a bootleg, but it might be. But it's, I will actually jump in here, and just in case anyone's like freaking out about what I'm about to say, I don't think this sounds better, but my initial thoughts were that it was, and I'll try and explain why. So this is actually more, in terms of an overall compression, this is more compressed, okay? The overall dynamics are significantly reduced on this, I would say, from the sort of quiet sort of opening to echoes, for instance, to the full on ba 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 kind of crescendo of it. You've probably only got about 6 or 7 dB, 8 dB difference, but there's an openness and a light to the background, and a shimmer to the cymbals, which is really, really, really beautiful. And bearing in mind this is kind of trippy sort of music, it kind of hits the spot, okay? So that's this. And you may be interested to go out and find a copy of this, or try other bootlegs. That's entirely your prerogative. I'm not going to recommend anyone goes and buys bootlegs. I don't generally like doing it, but as I say, until last week, the soundtrack to this music, apart from digitally, it was on a very sort of big box set of stuff that was released a few years ago, but on vinyl it's never been available, okay, not legitimately. So I had to go out and get this, and don't regret it. It still sounds great, but how does this new version sound different? So the first thing is, like I say, like I mentioned when watching the film, the separation between the tracks, the instruments, it's much better. This is so much cleaner. Roger Waters' bass has got more weight and depth to it. The guitars have got more body, and there is a much greater overall dynamic. Like I say, with echoes from the start, sort of just sort of the little sonar-like sort of pings, up to the da-da-da-da-da, sort of thundering crescendo. You've probably got double the dynamic range that you've got on the bootleg. So, there's no question that's a big, 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 big plus. But it's nowhere near as bright. So there's an overall kind of darkness to the air. There's a darkness to the ambience. And because you're in Pompeii, in an amphitheatre, it just doesn't quite sound, well, it clearly doesn't sound the same, but it does, for me, it is sort of almost a little bit sort of lacking in sort of verve, va-va-voom, get up and go. It's much clearer, it's much more focused, it's much more detailed, there's much more separation. This beats the bootleg hands down. And of course the bootleg, kind of equates with the sound quality of the VHS or the DVD or, previous editions. So this is a significant upgrade sonically. There's no question it's better, but there is a kind of character to it which just makes you kind of think, it doesn't quite get my emotion into the same place with that sort of, you know, hot, dry, Mediterranean baked kind of sunshine air, if you like. I think with that we'll come to a conclusion. So we've got, you know, we've got this LP, and hang on, and we've got the Blu-ray, and we've also got, of course, a CD, and we've got a DVD. Now, do I recommend them? Yes. Do I recommend all of them? Absolutely. But if you don't know Live at Pompeii, or at Pompeii, as it seems to be now called, I would say go out and get either the Blu-ray or the DVD, whichever one, you know, whichever one you can play on your system, basically. Because first and foremost, this is a movie, and it is almost the best thing that Pink Floyd ever did, if you see what I mean. Because it's a movie, there's, you know, there's more meat, if you like, on the bone of the composition for you to, you know, you can watch it as well as hear it, and it is, you know, they are at their absolute peak. So, you know, first and foremost, it's a movie, and therefore the first thing you want to get is the movie. And I would say whether you get the DVD or the Blu-ray, I'll point out this Blu-ray, I think it's probably 1080p. It's certainly not 4K, but, you know, whether that really matters or not, I don't think it really does. It's wonderful to watch. Anyone familiar with previous versions, like the director's cut I mentioned, this doesn't have an awful lot of those annoying kind of animations. So there's a lot more footage of the band on the stage, so to speak, in Pompeii. So it really is what you want. It's absolutely bloody amazing. Okay, and you know, pretty much the same is going to apply to the DVD, frankly, as does the Blu-ray. The mix, the cut, the mastering, the restoration of the video is absolutely phenomenal. Okay, and now the audio only version. Well, you know, as I said, apart from on I think it's only on a CD or DVD or Blu-ray or something, multi-disc mega Pink Floyd compilation that was released a while ago, then this music was only available as the DVD or the VHS before it, or of course the cinema theatrical release. So to have an official audio release both on CD and on vinyl is hugely welcome. And I mean, the cover that they've come up with for this is just, you know, it couldn't be better in my book. It's absolutely phenomenally beautiful. So Stephen Wilson's remixed it. I'm not so certain that I would have gone for a remix. If we could have got the original master tapes and made a phenomenal all analog cut from those, great, you know. But has he done a bad job? No, he hasn't done a bad job. It's, you know, the only thing that I mentioned that in any way, shape or form I'm just slightly sort of disappointed with is it's kind of the colour of that light. That on the bootleg, on the video, and on all that, you really get that feeling of that, the brightness of, you know, I mean, like it is here today. You know, the sun's absolutely beating down. It was there in Pompeii in October 72, and it just feels a little bit kind of opaque, let's say, the air on this mix. Okay, so I really wouldn't let that put you off. If you've got the bootleg already, or a bootleg, because there's thousands of them, they're not official things. Yeah, go out and get this, because it is so much cleaner. It's, you know, the drums have got more weight. The bass is phenomenal. It's much more even. It is a phenomenal thing. It's not just some, you know, bodged up in a, you know, back room kind of bootleg. It's awesome. You know, the packaging is wonderful. But the main event, the main event is the movie itself. And once you've watched it through a couple of times, you then have this, you know, the concert, which is the whole thing without those sort of in-studio shots and without the in the canteen kind of banter, which is, you know, is certainly entertaining and interesting, but, you know, the concert as such, and remember there was no audience there, so yeah, they were kind of in concert, and they were live, but they weren't in front of an audience. So, and when I say they were live, there's plenty of overdubs done afterwards in the studio. But, you know, the thing is a live recording, so to speak, of them outside in an amazing space, and it was filmed, and there's nothing quite like it. It's a very strong contender for the best sort of rock and roll movie ever made. You know, it's phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. I can't recommend it highly enough. Do go out and buy it, absolutely do. Okay, but first on your list has got to be the DVD or the Blu-ray. After that, you know, you may, you know, if you really want to go for it, get the LP, get the CD, but you've kind of got to get the movie. Okay, I think that's about all we need to say about it, really. It's mind-blowing. It's so good. And I will just say thank you all for watching. If you like the video, please do click the thumbs up button, leave a comment, and please subscribe. It all helps the channel. Okay, thanks so much. Bye now. Bye.